Morning, all. All right, so we're talking about the 1927-28 season today, and I've seen some comments here and there of, it's more interesting after the expansion. Well, it is. It's more interesting once you get to expansion, but I do like the storyline all the way along as well. So this is another year where we've got 10 teams in the NHL, 5 in the Canadian division, 5 in the American division, and the Americans are in the Canadian division because why not? I still think that's just for irony's sake. Montreal was the overall league leader, fell victim to the President's Trophy curse before it even existed. 26-11-7 record for Montreal, 59 points. They led their division. The Montreal Maroons, 24-14-6 for 54 points. The Ottawa Senators, third, 20-14-10, 50 points, and starting to get kind of rocky for the Ottawa Senators as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 18-18-8, 44 points. The New York Americans, one of the 2 teams out of 10 that finished below 500 that year with a record of 11-27-6 for 28 points. On the American side, the Bruins lead the division there, 20-13-11 record, 51 points. The New York Rangers in their third year, 19-16-9 record, 47 points. The Pittsburgh Pirates, 19-17-8 for 46 points. The Detroit Cougars, 19-19-6 for 44 points. They had not made the change to Falcons yet. Of course, eventually it's Red Wings. And the Chicago Blackhawks, 7-24-3 record for 17 points. So that's a pretty rough record, and the Blackhawks and the Americans, the only teams in the league with losing records that season. So the salary cap was abolished. The owners are like, we're making good money, we don't need a salary cap, which is interesting considering what would happen many, many decades later, where they insisted that they needed a salary cap or else. But at this point, of course, owners have full control over the players too. Like, contracts are just basically for life at this stage. Free agency, what's that? If you're a free agent, it's because the team doesn't want you. So the Sens are becoming a story because they're losing money. So the on-ice success is there. They've had Stanley Cups. Everything's doing well, except the money side of it. The cash flow's in the red. So they go to the NHL and ask for a greater share of revenues, basically saying, look, we've lost some money here. And the NHL said no. So what ends up happening is that the Senators, realizing they needed some money, on October 7th of 1927, the Montreal Canadiens decide to help them out. They take Hooley Smith away from Ottawa in exchange for Punch Broadbent, who's older at this point, and $22,000. Although that's rumored to be $22,000, I've also seen as $22,500. Either way, the Sens needed some money and they needed it fast, so they sold one of their better players to do it. And as you can see, they end up third in the division that year. February 18th of 1928, Alex Connell. And what's funny is, in the book, it's written as Alex. On the internet, I see it as Alec, so I just keep switching back and forth. That way, half of them are right, half of them are wrong. Alex Connell records his 6th straight shutout, which was an NHL record. And that's an impressive record, although at this point in time in history, the National Hockey League, not a lot of scoring going on. Howie Morenz, though, the first to reach 50 points in a season, he reached 51. The only team that's able to score goals, apparently, is the Montreal Canadiens that year. September 24th of 1927, the NHL, trying to encourage goals, they allow forward passing in both the defensive and neutral zones. Up until then, you could only commit a forward pass in the neutral zone. So just imagine if all the passes had to be back passes, how's that going to affect a power play? How's that going to affect the game in general? It's going to drag the scoring to a halt. So at this point, the only zone where you had to back pass is the offensive zone, the one where forward passing kind of leads to a lot of goals. March 22nd of 1928, Alex Connell, the first to reach 50 career shutouts in the National Hockey League. So again, he continues the remarkable run he'd been on. The Maple Leafs decide to change their colors from green to blue, which I've always thought is odd because leaves are green. This is why when they do St. Patrick's Day and everything, I'm thinking, just make the maple leaf green. It's right there. Leaves are green. But at any rate, yeah, they're the first team also, are the Toronto Maple Leafs, to have home and away jerseys. So up until then, you just had one jersey you're wearing. I would imagine at times, probably pretty hard to tell with all the stripes on the ice, which stripes belong to which team. So the ties doubled in the NHL that year. You'll notice there's a lot for a 44-game schedule, even though the NHL did everything it could to try to encourage A, scoring, and B, trying to get rid of ties via having a 10-minute overtime period. So the 10-minute overtime period, Didn't work. In fact, ties doubled. A little more than doubled, actually. Went from 36 the year before to 74 this year because I'm guessing coach is just getting better on the defensive side, and it's very similar to now. If you can keep the puck out of your net, get that point, get the point. So it doesn't matter which area you're looking at, that's going to be an issue. At any rate, the goals per game dropped to 3.8 per game, and that's both teams. So each team averaging about 1.9 goals per game. And the year before, the goals per game had been 4. So the NHL dropping off dramatically in goal scoring. And the Montreal Canadiens led the league with a 2.64 goals per game average, which is way above anybody else. So 2.6 goals per game is a really good offensive team that season. But overall, the offense just not there in the NHL at that point. And you'll see it when we get to the playoff scores, too. So the Hart Trophy winner that year is Howie Morenz of the Montreal Canadiens. The Vezina winner, again, it's George Hainsworth of the Montreal Canadiens. The Lady Byng goes to Frank Boucher of the New York Rangers. So again, for gentlemanly conduct, Frank Boucher's the guy. I do think it's interesting that gentlemanly conduct is one of the first trophies we get in the NHL, showing how truly Canadian it is and how very old world. It's got that kind of feel of an old world kind of sport too, and that we have the gentlemanly award, right? But at any rate, the quarterfinals, the New York Rangers, who finished ahead of Pittsburgh, they would win the best of two. Well, not best of two. It was total goals over a 2-game series. They win the first game 4-0 over Pittsburgh. The Pirates win the second game 4-2. However, on total goals, the Rangers win 6-4. The Montreal Maroons win the first game 1-0 over Ottawa. They win the second game over Ottawa by a score of 2-1. So over a 2-game set, they win by a total score of 3-1 and move on. In the semifinals, Boston ties the Rangers in the first game 1-1. The Rangers beat Boston in the second game 4-1 to win the series by a combined score of 5-2. The Montreal Maroons and the Montreal Canadiens play to a 2-2 tie the first game. In overtime, the Montreal Maroons win 1-0 in the second game to win the series by a combined score of 3-2. And then we get into the best of 5 Stanley Cup Final. The Montreal Maroons win the first game by a score of 2-0. The second game is won by the New York Rangers by a score of 2-1 in overtime. The third game, the Maroons win 2-0. So since it's a best of 5, they have a chance to win, but the Rangers with the comeback. First, by a score of 1-0 in the fourth game, and in the fifth and deciding game, the Rangers win 2-1. So again, scores stay really low in the playoffs. But the thing is that since the rosters are much smaller than what they are now, when you look at the goal totals, they're not bad per player. Howie Morenz leading the league, 43 games, 33 goals, 18 assists, 51 points. So again, 33 goals in 43 games. I'm going to go out on a limb and say part of the reason you're going to see a lot of low-scoring games is probably because you have like 12 players on a team. So these guys are going to be exhausted. They're going to play more than half the game. That's probably going to do it. Aurel Joliat for the Montreal Canadiens, 44 games, 26 goals, 11 assists for 37 points. Frank Boucher for the Rangers, 44 games, 23 goals, 12 assists, 35 points. George Hay for the Detroit Cougars, 42 games, 22 goals, 13 assists, 35 points. Nell Stewart with the Montreal Maroons, 41 games, 27 goals, 7 assists for 34 points. And Art Gagne for the Montreal Canadiens, 44 games, 20 goals, 10 assists for 30 points. On the goaltending side of it, George Hainsworth for Montreal, 26, 11, and 7, 1.05 goals against average. So you know your league needs more goals when you have a goaltender with a goals against average of just barely over 1. Clint Benedict of the Montreal Maroons, 24, 14, and 6 with a 1.7 goals against. Alex Connell for Ottawa, 20, 14, and 10 record, so he played all of the games. Most of these guys played all the games for their teams. 1.24 goals against for Connell. Hal Winkler for Boston, 20, 13, and 1, so he's the first Bruins goaltender to reach 20 wins. 1.51 goals against average. So the offense isn't quite there. The NHL is going to take more steps in the coming seasons to try to improve that. But still, your winner that year, the New York Rangers, first Stanley Cup for them, and in only their, second season, actually, Stanley Cup. So not too shabby. Not bad at all. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.